It's 8 o'clock a.m. You reach for your phone to check the news, but the feed won't refresh. You toggle the Wi-Fi. Nothing. You check the cellular data. Dead. You think it's just a local glitch until you look out the window and see your neighbors standing on their porches, staring at their own silent screens with the same look of confusion. The digital heartbeat of the planet has just stopped, and it isn't coming back for a long, long time. But before we begin this 30-day countdown, we must ask, how could this even happen? In a world of redundant servers and satellite constellations, what could possibly silence the entire planet? Scientists point to a Carrington event, a massive solar flare, a coronal mass ejection that slams into Earth's magnetosphere. Imagine a wave of magnetized plasma ejected from the sun at millions of miles per hour, hitting our atmosphere. It doesn't just knock out the power, it induces massive electrical currents in the fiber optic repeaters that line the ocean floor and the delicate electronics of our orbital satellites. In an instant, the hardware of the internet is physically fried. The transformers that power our cities explode in a shower of sparks, and the undersea cables that carry 95% of international data are rendered useless. There is no rebooting this. This is a hardware apocalypse. This is the stage upon which our story unfolds. Part 1. The first 48 hours. The digital ghost town. In the first few hours, the world operates on a sort of residual momentum. Most people assume the outage is temporary. They try the classic fixes, turning routers off and on, toggling airplane mode, checking their Ethernet cables. But as the sun sets on day 1, the reality begins to set in. The internet is not a luxury. It is the fundamental utility of our era. The first casualty is global logistics. In the skies, thousands of aircraft are suddenly flying blind in a sense. While pilots are trained for manual navigation, the sophisticated systems that manage global air traffic rely on constant data synchronization. Flights are grounded globally. Major hubs like Atlanta, Dubai, and Singapore become chaotic camps of stranded travelers. Without the ability to rebook via apps or check flight statuses, thousands of people are stuck in a state of perpetual waiting, staring at departure screens that have gone black. On the ground, the situation is even more precarious. Our modern just-in-time economy is a marvel of efficiency, but it is also incredibly fragile. Grocery stores and pharmacies don't keep months of stock in their back rooms. They rely on automated systems that order new supplies the moment a barcode is scanned. When the internet goes down, these orders are never sent. The trucks stop moving. Even if a driver knows their route, they can't get fuel. Modern gas pumps are connected to the network for payment processing and tank monitoring. Without a handshake from a central server, the pumps Consider the case of Dr. Elena Vance, a neurosurgeon in a top-tier hospital in Chicago. In the middle of a delicate procedure, her robotic surgical assistant, a machine that allows for sub-millimeter precision, suddenly freezes. The machine requires a low-latency connection to a cloud-based AI to stabilize its movements. Without it, the robot is a multi-million-dollar paperweight. Elena is forced to switch to manual surgery by the light of emergency lanterns, her hands shaking not from fear, but from the sudden jarring return to a more primitive era of medicine. This scene is repeated in thousands of hospitals. Digital patient records, the entire history of a person's allergies, surgeries, and prescriptions, are locked behind a digital door that no longer has a key. Doctors are flying blind, making life and death decisions based on what a patient can remember under the fog of pain. By the morning of day 2, the financial system is in a state of total cardiac arrest. We live in a world of digital ledger entries. Very little actual money exists in physical form. When you tap your phone or swipe your card, you are triggering a complex series of digital requests. Without the internet, that system is dead. People stand in long, frustrated lines at ATMs that refuse to dispense cash. In the few shops that remain open, owners are forced to accept only physical currency. But in an increasingly cashless society, most people have less than $50 in their wallets. The value of a credit card with a $10,000 limit drops to zero, while a crumpled $5 bill suddenly becomes a life-saving asset. The stock markets don't open. The digital wealth of the world's billionaires and the modest savings of the middle class are equally inaccessible. On paper, the world is still wealthy. In reality, everyone is broke. Think of Marcus, a day trader who spent years building a portfolio of digital gold. His Bitcoin, his Ethereum, his NFTs, they represent a fortune on the blockchain. But the blockchain is a consensus mechanism that requires a network. Without the internet, Marcus's private keys are just a string of useless characters. He watches from his balcony as people trade physical gold rings for bags of rice. The currency of the future has been defeated by the necessity of the present. Part 2, Day 3 to Day 7. The Information Dark Age. As we move into the first week, the psychological weight of the disconnection begins to crush the public spirit. We are a species addicted to the now. We have spent 2 decades training our brains for instant gratification and constant information flow. The sudden absence of this flow creates a vacuum that is quickly filled by fear and paranoia. This is the rise of the information dark age. Without news websites, verified social media accounts, or official government portals, rumors become the primary currency of information. In the absence of truth, the human mind invents monsters. Whispers start in the queues for water and bread. Some say it was a solar flare that fried the satellites. Others claim it's a coordinated cyber attack by a rival superpower. Some even whisper about extraterrestrial interference. Without a way to fact-check, these rumors spark localized panics. In some neighborhoods, people begin barricading their doors, convinced that an invasion is imminent. In others, the frustration boils over into the streets. Looting begins, targeting not electronics or jewelry, which are now useless, but basic necessities. Batteries, flashlights, canned goods, and bottled water become the most looted items on Earth. By Day 5, the infrastructure begins to fail in more tangible ways. Many municipal water systems and power grids rely on remote monitoring and automated controls. Without the ability for technicians to log in remotely, or for systems to sync their internal clocks, rolling blackouts become permanent. In the cities, the nights become terrifyingly dark. The light pollution that once hid the stars vanishes, revealing a stunning, indifferent cosmos above cities that are descending into chaos. For the first time in generations, the people of New York, London, and Beijing see the Milky Way, and the sight is more haunting than it is beautiful. The supply chain is now in a state of terminal collapse. In the ports of Los Angeles and Rotterdam, massive container ships sit idle. The cranes that unload them are controlled by complex logistics software that is currently offline. Thousands of tons of perishable food, fruit from South America, meat from Australia, begin to rot in their refrigerated containers as the fuel for the generators runs out. The global grocery store has closed its doors. If it isn't grown within 50 miles of where you are standing, you aren't going to eat it. Part 3, Day 8 to Day 14. The Analog Renaissance. At the start of the second week, something remarkable begins to happen. The initial panic begins to subside, replaced by a grim, utilitarian determination. Humans are, if nothing else, the ultimate survivors. As the digital world remains dark, we begin to rebuild the analog one. This is the era of the analog renaissance. People start digging through their garages and attics. They find the technologies we discarded in our rush toward the future. Battery-powered AM/FM radios become the most prized possessions in any household. Local radio stations that had been struggling to survive in the age of podcasts suddenly find themselves with an audience of millions. These stations become the glue of society, broadcasting emergency instructions, times for food distribution, and, perhaps most importantly, a sense of human connection. The Postal Service, once mocked as snail mail, becomes the only way to communicate over long distances. Retired mail carriers are called back to duty. People start writing letters again, not just for business, but to tell their families in other cities that they are alive. The world begins to feel massive again. A journey of 100 miles, which used to take 2 hours on a highway, now feels like an expedition. Maps, physical, paper maps, are pulled out of glove boxes. People realize they don't actually know how to get to the next town without a blue dot guiding them. They have to learn to read terrain, to follow road signs, and to ask for directions. In the neighborhoods, the communal board becomes the center of social life. Using chalk on pavement or markers on plywood, people post news and needs. I have extra firewood, need baby formula. Doctor available at house 42 for emergencies. Gathering at the park at sunset for news. The hyper-individualism of the internet era, where we could live next to someone for years without knowing their name, is replaced by a forced communalism. You have to know your neighbor because your neighbor might be the one with the manual can opener or the extra blankets you need to survive the night. Part 4. Day 15 today. 21. The deep silence and the mental shift. By the third week, the withdrawal phase is over. The frantic reaching for a phone that isn't there has stopped. The brain has begun to rewire itself. This period is what historians might one day call the deep silence. Without the constant background hum of global tragedy and digital outrage, the human psyche undergoes a profound shift. People report a strange, paradoxical sense of peace. Yes, life is harder. It takes 3 hours to prepare a meal that used to take 10 minutes. Water has to be boiled. Clothes have to be washed by hand. But the mental clutter has vanished. The FOMO, fear of missing out, that defined the 2010s and 2020s has died. There is nothing to miss out on because nothing is happening anywhere else, at least as far as you know. You are only where your feet are. This leads to a rediscovery of local culture. People start playing instruments they haven't touched in years. They read books by candlelight. They have long, winding conversations that aren't interrupted by a notification. The attention economy has collapsed, and in its place, we have found our own attention again. In rural India, a farmer named Rajesh finds that his life hasn't actually changed all that much. His village was never fully dependent on the grid, and his knowledge of the land is more valuable than any app. While the skyscrapers of Mumbai are silent and dark, Rajesh is teaching his sons how to store grain for the coming months. The digital divide has flipped. The tech-savvy urbanite is now the most vulnerable, while the unconnected rural worker is the most resilient. The hierarchy of the world has been inverted. Consider the educational impact. A student in Singapore who had lived her entire life in a world of instant Google searches and AI-assisted tutoring finds herself staring at a physical encyclopedia. She has to learn how to search an index, how to synthesize information from multiple sources, and how to think for herself. It is a painful, slow process, but for the first time in years, she is actually learning, not just processing. The deep silence has created a new generation of thinkers who aren't constantly being told what to think. Part 5. Day 22 to Day 29. The new normal. As we enter the final week, a new equilibrium has been reached. We have learned to live in the dark. The systems of survival, food distribution, local security, communal care are functioning. There is a sense that this might be forever. People have stopped asking, when will it come back? And have started asking, how do we plant a garden for next season? We have adapted to a slower, more deliberate pace of life. The sky is cleaner than it has been since the start of the Industrial Revolution. With 90% of cars off the road and factories dormant, nature is beginning to breathe. Birds can be heard in the middle of cities. The air tastes different, sharper, fresher. But the scars are everywhere. The global economy is a smoking ruin. Years of progress in education, medicine, and science have been paused or set back. The loss of life, particularly among the vulnerable who relied on high-tech medical care, is significant. We have realized that our modern world was a house of cards, built on a foundation of fiber optic cables and server farms that we took for granted. The Great Reset wasn't a choice. It was an act of nature. One of the most profound losses during this month is our history. We live in a time where we record everything. Every birth, every meal, every minor milestone is uploaded to the cloud. For 30 days, the world was invisible to itself. There are no digital photos of the Great Disconnection. There are no social media posts. For 30 days, the historical record is a blank space, filled only by handwritten journals and physical sketches. It is a missing month in the human story, a period of time that exists only in the memories of those who lived through it. Part 6, Day 30, the ghost returns. And then, on Day 30, it happens. It doesn't happen all at once. It starts with a flicker. A lone street lamp in a suburb of Seattle hums to life as a server halfway across the country finally syncs its clock. A woman in London who had left her laptop open for a month suddenly hears the ping of an incoming email. A teenager in Lagos sees his phone screen light up with 1,000 notifications. The internet is back. The return of the signal is like a flood. A month's worth of data, billions of messages, millions of news stories, trillions of dollars in digital transactions rushes through the pipes. The world is suddenly loud again. People grab their phones, their thumbs moving with a muscle memory they thought they had lost. They check their bank accounts, their social feeds, their emails. They want to see what they missed. But as the initial rush of reconnection fades, a strange thing happens. People look at their screens, and then they look at the people they've been living with for the last month. They look at the gardens they started, the books they read, the neighbors they finally met. The digital world is back, but the humans are different. We have seen behind the curtain. We know now that the internet is a tool, not the world itself. We have learned that we can survive in the silence, and that perhaps the silence had something to teach us. The Great Disconnection was the most expensive lesson in human history. It cost trillions of dollars and countless lives. But it also gave us back our perspective. It reminded us that the most important connections in life aren't made of light and silicon, but of flesh and blood. As the world logs back on, many people find themselves doing something they never thought possible. They look at the on switch, and for a moment, they consider leaving it off. The aftermath is a long road of reconstruction. Governments realize that the internet can never again be a single point of failure. The post-blackout protocol is established. Every city is mandated to maintain analog backups of vital records. Local mesh networks, independent of the global web, are built in every community. Shortwave radio becomes a mandatory skill in schools. We have relearned the lesson of the Titanic. No system is unsinkable. The month without the internet didn't destroy us. It forced us to grow up. It stripped away the noise and left us with the signal. It taught us that while the internet can tell us everything about the world, it can't tell us how to live in it. Thank you for watching this special presentation on ImagineWhatIfVerse. This scenario might seem like science fiction, but in an age of cyber warfare and orbital debris, the Great Disconnection is a possibility we must all consider. How prepared are you for 30 days of silence? Do you have a paper map? A battery-powered radio? Do you know your neighbor's name? If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button. It helps the algorithm find us, ironically enough. Subscribe for more what-if scenarios that challenge the way you see the world. And remember, the signal might be strong today, but your resilience is what matters tomorrow. Stay curious, stay prepared, And as always, thank you for being part of the verse. We'll see you in the next reality. This is Imagine What If Verse, signing off. But hopefully, staying connected where it counts. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep imagining, and maybe, just for an hour today, put the phone down and see what happens. For the youngest among us, the Alpha generation, the silence was particularly transformative. Children who had never known a world without a screen in their hands suddenly had to rediscover the physical playground. In the suburbs, the sight of children playing in the streets, riding bikes, building forts, and exploring local woods became a common occurrence once more. The digital babysitter was gone, forcing a return to imaginative play that many feared had been lost forever. These children, the digital natives who became analog explorers, would grow up to be the most resilient generation in a century, possessing the unique ability to navigate both the code of the machine and the grit of the physical world. The natural world also took advantage of our sudden stillness. In the great harbors of the world, marine life returned to waters that had been silenced by the cessation of massive container ship traffic. In Venice, the canals cleared once again. In the skies over industrial hubs, the air quality improved so dramatically that people in smog-choked cities reported seeing the horizon clearly for the first time in their lives. Nature, it seemed, was waiting for us to stop talking so it could finally speak. This month of silence was a breath of fresh air for a planet that had been gasping for breath under the weight of our digital noise.